VTubing is an industry that, within the last few years, has completely and utterly exploded into the mainstream. It's come an unbelievably long way from when the first mainstream VTuber came onto the scene in 2016, to the point that, by 2020, it was reported that there were over 10,000 active VTubers creating content across the internet. And while some people, myself included, may find their content to be, a bit on the cringier side of things, and while I might find their fans to be just slightly deranged in their dedication, it is undeniable that VTubers are currently winning. Some content creators in the field are making well over 7 figures in a year. Furthermore, VTuber agencies, which help their talent with everything from supplying them with rigging equipment to assigning them managers, are now worth millions and millions of dollars. But as we should all understand by now, sudden success is a breeding ground for countless dramas, the severity of which can range from completely and utterly pointless to disturbingly degenerate. The VTuber community in particular has seen many such dramas, such as the uncovering of Neander's questionable digital footprint,
She just said the
gamer word,
and the convoluted conspiracy surrounding Nuxtaku. And, as you might already suspect, our topic of discussion today will be one of these VTuber-centric dramas, though this one is a bit different from the rest. As is apparently the norm on this channel now, I first discovered this drama as part of a ridiculously disorganized string of tweets by people I had never heard of, with no sign of context or a coherent timeline anywhere in sight. I honestly have no idea why I was even shown tweets about VTuber drama, but I guess we've already established what my Twitter algorithm thinks of my interests. The drama was centered around a VTuber named Dokibird, who previously worked under the agency Nijisanji, during which time she went by Selen Tatsuki. The whole situation started when, following a series of bizarre events relating to Selen's social media pages and a mysterious visit to the hospital in December of last year, she was abruptly terminated by Nijisanji, with all her content being immediately wiped from the internet. A few things immediately stood out to me about this controversy, beyond, a massive creator being fired from her job with no warning and millions of views worth of content being wiped from the internet at once. First of all, for once, it wasn't a content creator taking the brunt of the internet's righteous rage. Rather, it was the company they worked for. Nijisanji, despite being one of the world's premier virtual YouTuber agencies, was being completely lambasted by Twitter warriors from all over the globe. The second thing that stood out to me was that, since the drama's beginning, Dokibird has seen obscene amounts of growth, with their YouTube channel going from around 5,000 subscribers to more than 400,000 in little over a day. But the most important thing which presented itself to me about this drama was that, even among the people who were so impassioned about it on Twitter, nobody seemed to really know the full story. And yet, there were clearly visible hints at conspiracies, corporate espionage, and toxic environments just waiting to be unveiled. So, as is my duty as an edutainment creator, I'm here to get you all up to speed on the origins, the meteoric rise, the sudden termination, and the second meteoric rise of Dokibird, aka Selen Tatsuki. Also, I want to note this here. Most of this video is scripted in a way that comes off as very charitable to Dokibird, because as I was writing it, Nijisanji hadn't officially responded to the drama. However, at the very end of the aftermath section of this video, I will include a section which discusses their response and its implications. Just keep that in mind going forward as you watch or listen. But before we get into all of the drama, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper on the concept of VTubers as a whole. If you've seen my Meowba video, you'll already know what PNG tubers are, and, well, VTubers are basically PNG tubers on steroids. Instead of simply choosing a static image to represent each emotion they might have, VTubers have to go through a convoluted process that uses motion tracking technology to rig a three-dimensional avatar to their movements in real life. Because of this, they often have to spend hundreds of dollars on equipment, commission artists to design their avatars, and download specialized technology. All this before they even start making content. Miaba could never. What's that? Miaba nuts what?
Meow has something to announce! From now on, Meow will no longer be a PNG tuber. But because Meow's becoming a VTuber!
Oh dear lord, what have I done? Regardless, even after completing this technological process, many VTubers also create personas for them to assume while they use their avatars. For example, the character which our good friend Natasha Nyanners plays is a quote-unquote gentle, sensitive, and often energetic cat girl who claims to be pure but also uses potty humor. Wow. I could go on because this is apparently very well documented, but you all get the point. Now, keep in mind that on top of all this work, VTubers are obviously still content creators, which means just like everyone else, they would still have to record, edit, post, and promote their content consistently, even after this ridiculous setup process. As such, it is perhaps understandable that multiple VTuber agencies have emerged over the years, with the express purpose of supporting VTubers behind the scenes. These companies, as I mentioned earlier, are supposedly responsible for providing VTubers with managers, promoting their content, organizing collaborations, providing them with studios and equipment, and more. The company we'll be discussing today, Niji-Sanji, also holds widespread auditions with the intention of scouting out potential talents who will become part of each new wave of VTubers that they help debut. Although, if recent buzz online is anything to go by, it seems Niji-Sanji's quote-unquote support is somewhat lacking. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, with all this explaining out of the way, I think it's time to give a proper introduction to the subject of this video, Dokibird. At the very beginning of her online content career, Dokibird was not a VTuber. Rather, she introduced herself as Maple, a Canadian artist who had created emotes and graphics for Twitch streamers. This apparently began as a simple hobby, but eventually evolved into a somewhat lucrative side career, as people took note of Maple's unique and expressive art. However, even during this time period, Maple's desire to assume a less behind-the-scenes role in streaming was evident. She had started her own Twitch channel as early as 2016, and would semi-regularly stream games like Overwatch, in which she had attained the truly impressive competitive rank of top 500 in her region. And although I wouldn't exactly say that her viewership numbers over the next few years were earth-shattering, it obviously wouldn't stay that way forever. Overall, not much of note occurred until 2020, when Maple would essentially engage in a complete rebrand of her online presence. Her username itself, Dokibird, would stay the same, but not much else would. And this is because she had decided to stop introducing herself as Maple, and instead go all in on establishing Dokibird as a character separate from herself. She then hired artists to design a 3D avatar for the character and to rig the character's movements to her own. And with this, she was primed and ready to become a bona fide VTuber. On May 4th, 2020, she began her official debut stream on Twitch. And once again, while the metrics it achieved weren't the greatest, with it only accumulating an admittedly measly peak of 39 concurrent viewers, Doki obviously wasn't shaken. She would spend the next few months continuing to stream herself gaming, drawing, chatting, and more. And over the course of these streams, she established Dokibird's personality and lore. During this time period, Doki also established that she was clearly on that Sigma grind set, putting in genuine effort to keep her content fresh and improve her audience's viewing experience. For example, she once commissioned artist Rice Deity to rig her movements to a specially made tomato avatar and referred to her stream as the Tomato Farm, as part of an elaborate April Fool's Day prank. She also cultivated community in-jokes, like referring to her followers as the Bark Knights. I love furry humor. Despite her best efforts though, her metrics would continue to be relatively low. Around half a year after debuting, she had only accrued about 5,000 followers on Twitch. However, unbeknownst to the Bark Knights, behind the scenes, Doki's career was drastically changing trajectory. Because, in December of 2020, Niji Sanji opened up auditions for their first wave of English language VTubers. And while our animated protagonist didn't end up making it into the first wave, she was actually able to secure a spot as one of the second wave members, meaning she would get a chance to debut under the famous agency. And so, with this fateful deal signed, the Dokibird identity was effectively as good as gone. After all, once Maple began working with Niji Sanji, they'd have a new identity provided for her to create content under, with a completely new model and new lore behind it. And with that, we had officially reached the end of the Dokibird era, at least for now. And we're ready to discuss the breakout success and bizarre removal of Niji Sanji's very own Selen Tatsuki. Selen Tatsuki was a member of one of two groups debuting under Niji Sanji's second wave of English-speaking VTubers. As part of this group, which was known as Obsidia, Selen made her debut on July 17, 2021, alongside Rosemi Lovelock and Petra Gurin. My bad. On this very same day, the group released a joint music video featuring all three members, titled Blackout. And I'd like to use this video to demonstrate the massive leap in scale between the platform size of Dokibird and Selen Tatsuki. And just to avoid confusion, I'll be referring to her as Selen from here on. The music video, which was written and composed specifically for the group, had a ridiculously high production value compared to anything Dokibird had produced, and it was able to accumulate a staggering 9.4 million views. Furthermore, Selen's YouTube channel hit the astounding milestone of 100,000 subscribers within a mere 19 days after it was created. Overall, even after the drama, this channel sits at nearly 800,000 subscribers. Obviously, all of this is a far cry from the 5,000 followers Dokibird had accumulated during her time on Twitch. But even when faced with this absolute explosion in visibility beyond basically anything I've ever seen before, Selen seemed to be a natural. She easily surpassed her peers in the Obsidia group, and she seemed to be on top of the world, getting to do everything she had ever wanted to do as Dokibird. She would play games, draw, make animations, and post music videos. With regards to the gaming specifically, she was actually able to develop quite a reputation as a skilled gamer. In fact, she encountered multiple actual professional players in both Apex Legends and Overwatch 2, even emerging victorious over Overwatch legends like XQC and Seagull in a random online match. She also achieved the coveted Apex Predator rank in Apex Legends, which means even when I specifically try to choose a topic with no sexual deviance involved, it turns out I still have to discuss a predator. Along with these notable achievements, I can also appreciate that Selen referred to her fans as Dragoons. Also, apparently drawn by the mention of gooning, the official Discord account slid into her DMs while she was on stream to announce that they too supported the Dragoon army. I just needed to bring that up. Overall, things seemingly remained very positive for the next few years. Selen and her peers continued to grow at astronomical rates, releasing merchandise, collaborating amongst themselves, and basically just earning their agency an unfathomable amount of money. However, things would take a very strange turn come December of 2023. Immediately after she received the awards for Best FPS VTuber and Gamer of the Year at the 2023 VTuber Awards, a few odd things would happen across Selen's social media accounts. First of all, her YouTube channel posted and then immediately privated a cover of the song Last Cup of Coffee by Lily Pichu. Selen then took to Twitter in order to claim that her management had been the ones to private the song, but she still believed it would be a shame for the song to never see the light of day, so she encouraged her fans to re-upload it. Now, already this was a bit strange. If the management was against Selen's upload of the song, then why would it be alright for her followers to then just disseminate it across the internet on their own accounts? And why had they privated a video posted to her channel, seemingly without even alerting her that they would be doing it beforehand? The strangeness though only continued. After a few days of silence, Selen's account would make this tweet. Quote, "I apologize for the silence. I've been in the hospital after an accident and will be staying here for a few days to be under supervision. I just got back access to my phone yesterday." End quote. The formal way in which this tweet was worded, as well as the cryptic language and the mention of her being unable to access her phone, was all very odd. Furthermore, as we'll discuss later, this one tweet in particular was of extreme interest to some of the more conspiratorial members of the Dragoons. But with that being said, what followed this announcement of Selen's hospitalization was literally more than a month of complete and utter silence from her social media accounts. The only notable activity was when the official Nijisanji En account made a tweet alerting fans that Selen would be unable to make it to a convention that she had initially been scheduled to attend, as well as an announcement made on the last day of the year that she had been discharged from the hospital and would be aided by her parents in recovering after her accident. Other than that though, more silence. In response to this silence, fans began to tweet with the hashtag #WhereIsSelen, wondering where Selen was and whether or not she was okay. And yet there was still more silence, until, without any kind of warning, Nijisanji privated every single one of Selen's VODs, set her Twitter account to protected, and essentially locked down every single account related to the Selen Tatsuki name. Immediately after this, they made a tweet announcing the termination of Selen's contract, which, according to them, was prompted by repeated breaches of the contract and misleading statements on social media. This unbelievably shocking message was accompanied by 2 massive pages of text, which go more in depth and explain the various reasons for Selen's termination. Regardless of any weird vibes this tweet may give off on first impression, we're going to take a look at this document and see if we can peer through all the legalese to see exactly what Selen is being accused of here. And just to remind you all, everything I'll be saying from here going forward will be alleged. I wasn't there, so I can't say exactly what happened. My goal is just to recount the words and the reactions of people relevant to the situation. With that said, let's dive in. Right off the bat, Nijisanji claims that Selen exhibited, quote, non-compliance with right authorizations and authorization flows. Logically, this would match with the Last Cup of Coffee music video incident. According to them, they had notified Selen a day before posting that they had not obtained necessary permissions for her to upload the music video, and yet she went ahead and did so regardless. They also report that Selen had made, quote, misleading statements. They elaborate that she posted to X without any context that, quote, management has privated the song, and then she encouraged third parties to re-upload the song, and this does match with what we've seen previously. They also accuse her of being slow to communicate with creators, resulting in delays of the payments of commissions to artists who have created assets for her. The final and most cryptic accusation that I'll touch on here is that they claim to have received, quote, ongoing reports about Selen's inappropriate behavior, which is just unbelievably cryptic, and it's very odd that they don't elaborate on this at all. Overall, they claimed that the reason for the sudden termination was that they had been unable to get in contact with Selen directly, and they couldn't come to any kind of agreement with her emergency contact. Furthermore, they say that Selen was threatening to make public claims of harassment against them. Furthermore, she said she was unable to complete her work and that that was somehow caused by Anycolor, the company that owns Nijisanji. Immediately, this tweet blew up, and it now sits at more than 25 million views. And let's just say the reception was less than ideal for Nijisanji. But before we get into the aftermath of this tweet, let's address Selen's side. Although, considering that she had just been terminated, I'm gonna stop calling her Selen and go back to calling her Doki now. In her initial response, Doki explained that the real reason she had been hospitalized in December of 2023 was that, unfortunately, she had attempted to take her own life. In her words, this was the result of a, quote, built-up of bullying from within and being in a toxic and poor environment for numerous months. Furthermore, she claims she had attempted to leave Niji-sanji on more neutral terms in January of this year, but obviously, this didn't end up happening. She then explains that she'll be returning to the Dokibird channel and streaming using her old avatar, now no longer associated with Niji-sanji in any way. She emphasized that, despite the change in avatar and channel name, she was still the same person, and she hoped her prior audience would be able to find her and continue enjoying her content. Following the immediate virality of every single one of these tweets, Doki's replies were flooded with support, Niji-sanji's replies were flooded with hate, and the Dokibird YouTube channel went from 5,000 subscribers to more than 200,000 before the day was even over. And although I could probably leave off right here and tell you that this is how the story ends, there's still much more to talk about. We still have to cover the immense backlash against Niji-sanji, the attempted debunking of each of their claims against Selen, and the conspiracy theorist level overthinking that has gone into this situation as a whole. If you'll recall, earlier in this video I mentioned a suspicious seeming tweet from the Selen Tatsuki account, which announced that she was hospitalized as the result of an accident. However, what I didn't tell you is that, following this tweet going up, some fans with, let's just say, a large amount of free time began to analyze one particular difference between this tweet and Selen's past tweets. Specifically, what they noticed was that the apostrophe in this tweet is a curly apostrophe, whereas Selen's tweets usually use a straight apostrophe. According to certain armchair detectives, this could serve as evidence that Niji-sanji had actually taken control of Selen's social media accounts all the way back in December of 2023, and that this tweet, as well as another from the same time period, was made by Selen's management impersonating her. This is because, while US and Canada keyboards typically use a straight apostrophe, Japanese keyboards more often use the curly apostrophe. Thus, the odds were that this tweet was made by someone with a Japanese keyboard, such as, for example, someone working for a Japanese company like Niji-sanji. And while this Death Note level over-analysis was certainly a ride to go through, it was actually debunked by the fact that the difference in apostrophes only occurs on desktop devices. However, you can clearly see by this intricately crafted piece of comedy posted by yours truly, tweeting from a mobile device like an iPhone will result in a curly apostrophe even without a Japanese keyboard. Regardless, in an ironic twist, the conspiracy theorists were actually proven correct by Niji-sanji's own statement, though not for the reasons they had suspected. According to Niji-sanji, they had removed Selen's access to her social media accounts after the fiasco with the Last Cup of Coffee music video, which occurred on December 26th. Therefore, because these tweets went up on December 27th and December 31st respectively, they must have been made by Niji-sanji's staff, because Selen's access had already been revoked. Now, obviously, it's somewhat questionable behavior to go onto someone's social media account and impersonate them while they are currently in the midst of extreme mental health struggles. But this was far from the only one of Niji-sanji's actions that was called into question. The first of their claims about Selen to be contested was that she wouldn't communicate with creators, which resulted in her not paying commissions for some art she used. Doki actually addressed this in her first stream back on the old YouTube channel. She claimed that, during her time under Niji-sanji, she ended up paying for many commissions out of her own pocket due to management not doing so, despite their agreement apparently stating that they would cover these expenses. While it's difficult for us to believe her at face value, because she's clearly biased in this situation, multiple people have come forward to support her. For example, artist @weenie_desu claimed that after Nijisanji continually sent them incorrect documents that kept them from getting paid, Selen had taken it upon herself to pay them directly in order to cover for her management's mistakes. Illustrator Melon Minty also claimed that Selen had made sure creators she commissioned were paid even when Nijisanji failed to ensure that. Furthermore, they also reiterated the claim that Selen's management continually messed up documents that resulted in the entire process becoming a mess. Another creator that came forward to contest the claims made in the termination notice was Lily Pichu, the original singer and producer of the song that sparked this entire conflict. According to her, she told Nijisanji she was okay with Selen covering the song all the way back in August of 2022. If this is true, this would mean that one of the main justifications given for Selen's termination, which was that she didn't acquire proper permissions to post her cover of the song, was completely invalid, since she had obtained permission from the song's original creator more than a year before the cover was even uploaded. Now, once again, we don't know if literally any of these claims are true, but by this point, the Jormai 49ers should know how Twitter operates. Once someone is quote-unquote cancelled, the floodgates are open, and literally anything goes. By the way, if you want to laugh at more examples of Twitter being crazy, check the video in my description on my second channel, Jormai 50. But back to your regularly scheduled programming. And so, Nijisanji could do nothing but sit and stare at the monumental tidal wave of backlash that was heading directly towards them. Everyone from fellow Nijisanji VTubers to former members who had experienced the agency before began chiming in with their 2 cents, and even seemingly unrelated figures like gaming journalists provided scathing critiques of how Nijisanji had handled the situation, both with their dubious accusations and the callous way in which they treated Selen when she was clearly going through a rough time. Even Moist Critical, the granddaddy of mainstream media dramas himself, saw fit to weigh in after reading an article about the situation.
From everything I've seen behind the scenes there, it's bad. I don't know how they keep getting talent and how they get away with some of the shit they pull. It's bad.
But simply giving their input on the situation wasn't enough for some fans. In particular, the people who had been serving as Selen Tatsuki stream moderators noticed that, although Nijisanji had removed Selen's access to her streams, they had somehow forgotten to get rid of the moderator's access. As such, they were free to hijack the Selen Tatsuki YouTube channel, activating an offline stream with the express purpose of promoting her new channels, that is, until they were swiftly taken down. And finally, people began to mass unsubscribe from Nijisanji creators. And I feel I should note, Dokibird had specifically told her fans they should not do this because the actions of the company's higher-ups do not reflect directly on the creators. This hasn't really stopped people though. It also hasn't stopped creators and brands from stepping away from Nijisanji. For example, Height, a manufacturer of desktop computers and PC components, has also discontinued their current collaboration with the company. Now, seemingly in an attempt to save face and not give in to the Twitter mob, on February 7th, Anycolor published an extremely short and concise statement to their investor relations page. It read, "On February 5th, 2024, Anycolor made the decision to terminate our affiliation contract with the Nijisanji EN liver, Selen Tatsuki. The impact of this decision on our financial results will be negligible." Once again, this came off extremely poorly. To many, it cemented the fact that Anycolor as a company did not seem to care about their talent or how they were treated, and instead, it was all about their bottom line. And while I can certainly understand that a corporation's main desire is to make money, the way they've gone about this is undeniably suboptimal for them. This response in particular led to various hacker fans hijacking the Nijisanji Wikipedia page in order to add them to the list of black companies. And no, they're not talking about diversity. In Japan, a quote-unquote black company is an exploitative company which violates the rights of its workers and doesn't comply with the Japanese Labor Standards Act. And while I appreciate the sentiment, I can't help but feel comparing VTuber drama to actual power abuses and exploitations of rights is just a bridge too far. Regardless, people continued to hound Niji-sanji for this incident, and some even began to look into their past actions to try to identify their pattern. And, well, according to Polygon, this is not the first suspiciously abrupt graduation we've seen from Niji-sanji. In the past, they have also suddenly terminated VTuber Zion Lanza, supposedly for copyright infringement, offensive remarks, and giving likes to comments falling under defamation of Niji-sanji livers. And while an absolutely schizophrenic and very thorough Google Doc has since been published with the express purpose of debunking the claims against Zion Lanza, I won't be going into that here. Can I just say though, if I was fired for liking tweets, I don't think I would have been very gracious about it. But you all have seen my Twitter, so you know I like some very interesting tweets. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the hello, future Jormai49 here. I have one final note, or I guess a couple final notes, before we get to the conclusion of this video. Literally, as I was finishing up the editing of this video, Niji-sanji posted a video response to the whole situation, and then Dokibird posted multiple responses to their response, so it looks like we have a bit more to go through to tell the full story. First of all, multiple VTubers that are still part of Niji-sanji English have come out and said they weren't involved in harassment of any kind. That part figures. They then provide some screenshots which elaborate on why the Last Cup of Coffee music video was privated, and unlike the way in which Selen represented the situation, it does seem management was communicative about the issue with the video, specifically being that there were former VTubers in the video that were no longer associated with the organization, meaning they had yet to receive confirmation that these people were okay with being involved in the project. This would paint the situation in an entirely different light, because the issue wasn't about copyright like we initially thought, it was about privacy. The VTubers then say that, following this whole situation, they had communicated with Selen about why she decided to make such a vague tweet that really didn't reflect well on Niji-sanji. In this video, one VTuber in particular, Vox Akuma, claimed that Selen had exhibited a pattern of behavior in which she would do things without permission and then turn this on her management team. The VTubers continually referred to a document that was released to them by Selen's lawyer, which apparently included some accusations that they found to be hurtful and untrue. What is significant about this though is that these people were never supposed to have been shown this document at all. This is because, according to Doki's claims on Twitter afterwards, these documents included personal information. This led people to make claims that Niji-sanji had doxed Dokibird by providing her information to other VTubers at the agency. This would obviously be a violation of her privacy, which of course is reprehensible, and if true should be condemned. Some part of me does question why Doki got so fixated on the possibility of personal information being released rather than refuting the claims that were being made against her, but I can understand her concern. Furthermore, the very next day, Dokibird made yet another Twitter post, in which she goes into more depth on what happened. She said she had written the document in her darkest moments, and while there were no addresses or specific personal information in the document, she still felt it should have been kept private. After all, it was only revealed after a miscommunication between her lawyer and the Niji-sanji lawyers, who naturally speak Japanese. Ultimately, she claims the document was just meant to show her lawyers evidence of what was happening to her, and to help them determine if action should be taken based on that. But as soon as the document was released to Niji-sanji, they terminated her and ceased all negotiations. In this tweet, she also mentions that she went through not one, but 2 suicide attempts, which is very horrible to hear. And regardless of what's true and what's fake in this confusing situation, I do genuinely hope that she starts to feel better and is in a better place now mentally. Overall, Niji-sanji's statement casts a few shadows of doubt onto Dokibird's story of her experiences as Selen Tatsuki. It seems that multiple of her co-workers had allegedly noticed a pattern of behavior, and even if that's not true, given these screenshots, we can see that at the very least the situation is more nuanced than we initially thought, assuming that the screenshots are not faked or very charitably trimmed, which they very well may be, keep in mind. Niji-sanji may have had a valid reason to private the music video, and they may have communicated with Doki more about it than she let on publicly. However, it's very clear that her termination was a sudden thing, and Doki was obviously in a very rough spot mentally. As such, it's difficult to condemn her for anything, since it's painfully apparent she wasn't getting the support she so desperately seemed to need. Furthermore, multiple of Niji-sanji's claims have still been contested, so keep that in mind. But with all that out of the way, let's move on to my conclusion. I want to reiterate here something that I've repeated multiple times throughout the video. There is no way for us to know if there is any truth to the things that Niji-sanji or Dokibird have said. Initially, this case seemed to be a cut and dry situation, with an unfeeling corporation heartlessly parting ways with someone who just wanted to give their job their all. But given the release of Niji-sanji's response, it's entirely possible that at the very least, some of the things posted by Dokibird have been part of an elaborate marketing ploy to draw more viewers to her channel as she leaves her job. But these things are not for me to speculate on. If anything, I hope Dokibird is in a better state mentally than she has been. I want to be clear that I'm not playing the blame game here. As I always say, you all are free to form your own opinions. I'm just providing the information that I have to go off of. The only thing I will say for sure is that I hope people stop mass unsubscribing from all the VTubers still at Niji-sanji simply because of the company they work for. That seems somewhat counterproductive. But what do I know? I've just been your host, Jormai49. What a ride, and good night.